I'm actually pretty damn glad. Sometimes I just want an empty space where I could just talk. That's it. I don't need to do nothing else. I don't need to monitor nothing. I just can do what I need to do, man. That's what I'm looking for. That's the shit. That's the ticket. But anyway, I figured we're going to definitely talk about this particular topic here. Um, I wanted to kind of share my thoughts on, you know, basically being victims of hype, being overhyped, being victims of hype is the topic that I want to discuss because it's a shame. I feel like there, I feel like we're being like we really are victims of hype, and it's a damn shame. So a couple things I want to tackle with this topic because it could look like it's going south. It can look like it's going all sorts of different ways. You know what I'm saying? In terms of how this could be interpreted. And of course, I have to be as salacious as I possibly can when I make these particular topics. So I'm going to definitely make these topics regarding, you know, things that, you want people to have this discussion. Like I said before, I've said this before. And so you're going to need to make interesting topics here. So, of course, you could probably deduce and gather why that Zelda is going to be a part of the conversation, right? And it is at no point, right, that I'm shitting on this game. Although I will say, in terms of the Zelda, it at this point it is not a Zelda game anymore. I don't know what it is. You know what I'm saying? And I heard from Nintendo that they're going to be this is what they're going to do from now on. This is it, which is fine. Uh, it would be nice to do like an old school type of Zelda where it's like really focused on like hardcore level design and stuff like that. I think that would be pretty cool. Um, that's what I think it would be. I think it would be pretty fire to have something like that. But I get it. This shit's making money, and I would say the same motherfucking thing. I'm like, you know what? Going forward, this is what this shit is going to be about. You can get mad, you can hate it or love it, but going forward, we're going to start doing this shit because this shit is making the money, and that's fine. That's totally fine. If you hear some dishes clinking in the background, it's only because I'm doing dishes old school. I have a whole dishwasher, and to be honest with you, I ain't gonna lie. I don't know how to use it. I don't know how to use this dishwasher. I'm looking at that shit like, how the fuck do you use it? And I don't feel like learning it right now. Not right now. I got too much. I got other fish to fry. Like building this fucking coffee table right now just for this apartment. So I gotta build things from scratch. I really shouldn't have done that. I should have got the simplest Asian fucking design ever. That's what I should have done. But nope. I want to be cute with it. Now I gotta deal with a whole bunch of fucking difficult screws and shit like that. Anyway, I digress. But what I would like to talk about is going to be salacious as hell because it's going to seem like I'm clowning another game, specifically Zelda or any other game that's being hyped. But no, I feel that when people are swept up in the hype, they can't see the issues of said product, whether it's a movie. I remember I seen Endgame, and bro, like that Endgame, to me, when you look at it, it was trash. It was trash to me, of course. You know, I didn't like any of that shit. I was like, what the fuck is this? And some people liked it. It is not one of the better. It's not the best Marvel movie. So there's that. You know, wasn't really feeling all that shit. I wasn't really happy about that because it's you talk about the Spider-Man 1 and 2, right? Or X-Men 1 and 2. And in all of these movies, Iron Man, all of these movies, man, these movies are iconic. And I mean, I know it seems like I'm kind of straying far from the topic here. Uh, But like when you see that though, that you don't want to really see Endgame again. You want to see the old classics. And, everyone I talk to that they have high reverence for these games or movies. You know what I mean? And I better get to the point. Actually, I'm tripping because I really should get to the point. The point is, after the hype is over, can you admit that if you were bamboozled, right? Can you admit that the hype caught you by storm? And you know what I'm saying? Did you fall for the hype? And are you able to admit that this wasn't as good as what the hype is? Because I'm dealing with this with the what's the game, the Hogwarts. I got pretty hyped for the game, even though I don't really mess with any kind of Harry Potter. I really don't. That's the funny thing. I don't mess with the Harry Potter games or movies or any of the things. I mean, not because of what she said, but just I don't know. I'm not interested in magic in general. But I love me an open world game. And then I got swept up and I didn't enjoy it. I haven't even beaten it all the way yet. I think I'm close to beating it because you have 4 seasons in the game. But I was like, not really feeling it. It's a lot of issues that I feel like went under the radar. And then you got like the Elden Ring thing, right? That game was extremely, I think that was overhyped. Regardless if you like it or not, the type of hype that game got relative to its quality, whether it's build quality and whatnot. I mean, people could say that, oh, play games, not graphics or whatever, but relative to everything that it's done, I think people need to really kind of come out and admit that you got bamboozled with that one. That was one of those games where it was just like, was it really as big as what everybody said? I mean, they were making it look like it was life-changing, basically. That's what they were making it look like. This is a life-changing experience. And I get it. Maybe somebody sees it like that, man. But, like, that's the thing. Are you able to kind of spot the flaws, or are you just going to continue on with the charade? Which kind of brings me to, like, the whole Zelda thing, right? I like a lot of games that look like shit. I'm not saying that Zelda looks like shit, but I like a lot of games that look like shit. I liked a lot of games that was glitchy. I liked a lot of games that had control issues. Shit like that. Like, I don't mind. Ain't no shame in my game when it comes to, me particularly liking games. I don't typically get caught up in the hype anyway. So that's not something that, I don't have a problem with being caught up in the hype and stuff like that. So it's not like I'm beyond it, but I will say, like, I don't really get caught up in it like that. Put it that way. I just don't. But I feel like I'm pretty good at, looking at things and be like, okay, this is probably, they can do better than this. You know what I mean? They could do better in this category and that category and stuff like that. But, that's just me. You get a lot of places, right, where the shit is like, the publications will overhype shit. They'll say that something is like one of the best games that they've ever played. And then, like, to me, Red Dead Redemption is definitely up there. I can't fuck with that. Red Dead Redemption, absolutely not. I can't fuck with the way that looks. I can't. Like, truthfully, it's one of the things that I'm not going to deal with. The controls were terrible. The graphics were great. The acting was pretty good. But then when you kind of look at everything, fundamentally it was flawed in terms of it being a game. You still have to play the game, and it had a lot of issues, and a lot of people weren't. A lot of reviewers weren't honest with how the game functioned and played. They weren't honest about that shit. And I feel like that's terrible, because it makes people victims of things that can be overhyped. That shit don't sit well with me right there. That I don't like that the media can sit there for clicks and shit like that and try to find the next it thing and get everybody riled up, and then everyone games kind of fall off the cliff because it's like, it really didn't have that much substance. Like, you wouldn't know what proportionate hype is that Grand Theft Auto 3 for the PS2. That shit right there, that was appropriate hype right there. That was absolutely appropriate hype. We didn't have a game like that before, ever, right? Prior to it. You know what I mean? Not all the systems that they had in place. We just didn't have anything kind of like function in that way. And they did it so well coming out the gate. You know, it that the hype that it got, even San Andreas, the hype that those particular games, that's the era that I come from. I come from the era where you, if a game is that good, I mean, you got to be exceptional when it comes to, you know, a game being game of the year. It has to be around that. You know what I'm saying? It has to be. Uh, it has to be innovative, but not just innovative. It still has to play well. Like, you can't be just an innovative game and that's pretty much it. That's kind of no. That's not good enough. Because there were a lot of innovative games. One of the games that I feel like was really innovative is The Getaway, Black Monday. It's a very innovative game. I think Dreams is an innovative game. In practice, was it the best thing to do? No, because ultimately you still have to have gameplay mechanics that works. You know, they have to work well, and it has to be engaging. There was a lot of flaws. They had a lot of good ideas, just like Dreams, and it, didn't really pan out. If you really if you were to look at it on the grand scheme of things. I'm moving on to Zelda, though, right? With the whole situation with Zelda, right, is that I'm going to stick by my comment and say that I still feel like it's an expansion. I get that you could do new things, and I said this earlier. I was like, well, is it a Zelda game at this point? Zelda is known for the strong storyline that they had going on. It was one of the strongest storylines that they had at Nintendo, you know, and it was in your face, and they had the towns, they had the exploration, they had the constructed levels and how you would go through it. And I get it. Ocarina of Time is one of those games where you had to limit the gameplay from where it used to be, like, A Link to the Past and all those other old games, because they didn't have the technology to make an open world, a big world. Now they do. But the thing is, the story took a massive hit to me. It's not in your face. The music took a fucking hit too, because they have a certain vibe that they're looking for. And these are all subjective opinions. This is how I feel about it. I feel like because the game is so open-ended and you can do whatever you want within there, it takes away from any kind of shrine or puzzle that you could possibly have in the game. And it just makes the game feel completely different. Now, I haven't played it. I played Breath of the Wild. They say it's similar, right? But that's the thing. If it plays similar, I didn't like that from Breath of the Wild either. You're adding new mechanics to a game that is going so far from where I used to, where I remember it, and how the old games kind of function too. Because I remember my friend back in the 90s, man, he was all about that Zelda. He was on that shit all the time. And he was invested into the story. He was explaining it to me the best that he could in a single age, or single digit age. And it seemed like it was over my head when it came to the story. He even had Robin Williams. It was so good that he named his daughter Zelda, So, I mean, to go from being so story oriented to just like, okay, there's an underlying story, but you can still do whatever you want. And to me, because you can essentially legally break the game, it's kind of like, where's the level design? Like, you got to give me kind of limits. You know what I mean? Well, that's on a different tangent. I digress when it comes to that. I will say this. There are a lot of people that are saying that Tears of the Kingdom is one of the best games ever. And I feel like people are not being as objective as they could be. It's almost as if either they're afraid to kind of speak their mind, which the internet will rip you to fucking shreds if you do. Hence what I said earlier about the Spider-Verse situation. They could try to. But you get the mob will be after you if you say something that they don't like, and they can't be honest about it. I think that's what ended up happening with the reviewers. They didn't want to lose, their early copies, so they had to say whatever they said. And of course, it's a domino effect because now people are saying that it's the best game ever made. I didn't feel that way with Breath of the Wild at all. I feel like it's a fun game that's puzzle based. I mean, that's fine if you want to do puzzles and stuff like that. I mean, puzzles if you want to create, right? Kind of like Little Big Planet or Minecraft, and you can have hours and hours of fun with that shit. But I do like a constructed game where there's limitations and rules, a set of rules that you have to learn. I do like that, and I don't feel like that's what's going on. And I ain't feeling that. Some people are. Some people see Zelda and they buy it. It doesn't matter what Zelda does. They're going to buy the shit, and that's fine. But the hype portion is what I'm interested in. Because everybody went and bought it. I know somebody that bought a new Switch, and it's like we're victims of being, I don't think we won't fact check shit. Like, there's no fact checking. You know what I'm saying? There's no fact checking. And what's going to happen is, right, if anybody had any grievances for any of these games that are like super overhyped, if anybody had any grievances at all, they're not going to mention it over time. Like, over time, they're going to have fine memories of the hype, waiting in line. You know what I'm saying? What do you call it? Pre-orders and all the other stuff you get. That's what they're going to have a fine memory of. And it's like, well, can you really identify if it's a bad game or if the game wasn't as great as what it's being overhyped for? Even if you take it out, if you take that element out of it, right, you still get a situation where people are, how can I put it? You're still like a hype zombie. You know what I'm saying? People are going to hype a lot of things. And I saw this video on YouTube, and they were talking about some of the most overhyped games ever. And to be honest with you, I think most Naughty Dog games are overhyped. I'm saying a lot of shit that's like really controversial, but that's what I'm seeing, lots and lots and lots and lots of overhyped games coming from Naughty Dog. Because if like the guy says this, and it was interesting, I wonder if people are going to be willing to say that. Strip the cutscenes away from the Uncharted, right? Would you like, you get a standard third-person shooter? You know what I mean? And then I had another conversation that's even more layered is, is that genre like really an innovative genre in the first place? Is it something that people like? Is that an innovative genre, basically? What else can you do with a third-person shooter but like shoot? You can change the properties of movement speed and all this other stuff, but like basically you still have to point and shoot, and you can have better AI, but it's not going to like break boundaries if you're a shooter. You got to do more than just having a good shooter or shooting mechanics. You know what I'm saying? And Uncharted doesn't even have the exploration aspect to it. You just basically follow the path and go into an arena and then shoot. And yet that game got accolades and upon accolades upon accolades. And it's like, I mean, was it really deserving? Even when you get a game that has a lot of cutscenes, a great story, great acting, you know what I'm saying? And then you just give it Game of the Year because of the acting or because of the cinematic flair or quality. Where's the fun factor? Like, how do you feel about actually playing a game? Because if you're playing a game to get from one cutscene to another, is it really a game at all? Or if it is it a good game? And people, especially the PlayStation fans, don't like to hear that shit. But they become hypocrites when it comes to actual other PlayStation exclusives that don't have that cinematic flair, It kind of sucks. Because on one side of the fence, you know what I mean? Hype is supposed to be something that's genuine, and you're like, I'm really hyped for it. I see a lot of people that do play Tears of the Kingdom or are playing Tears of the Kingdom, and these guys are legitimately hyped. Like, it's real. It's palatable. This hype is a real thing that they're feeling, and you can't get mad at it because it's so authentic. They'll tell you that it's one of the best games that they've ever played. They'll tell you that shit. They'll tell you that shit, and that's great. But then you get like reviewers, especially the fucking Australian review, excuse me, the influencers, the Australian ones, the fucking pompous ones. I'm going to sound like an Indian, but they were like, well, we played the game and it's one of the best games I've ever played. It's the best game ever made. Oh my gosh, you have to get this. What are you doing with your life? And it's like, come on, bro. Like every time, like it's always a hype game that they say is the best game of all time. Like you never, like you're not objective about it at all. Like you don't even kind of mention as to why. I saw people review Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and they saw like clear flaws that they acknowledged in their video as flaws, and they were like, "Well, I mean, it's there, but I don't care. It's still the best game ever." And they just move on to the next scene. It's like, damn, how disingenuous can you fucking get? Like, are we serious here? Like, it's always like it's like to be. It's weird to be you know be that damn disingenuous. And I think that's what I have a problem with. Like, if you're legitimately excited for, I've seen some people that love Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and their fucking enthusiasm for that series is contagious. It's super contagious. You be like, let me just pick it the fuck up. And that's how I kind of want hype to be. Not this shit where people are remembering the hype and that's all they can really think about when they play the game, and then they skip over all these fucking flaws. There were a lot of flaws with Elden Ring. Not even just performance, it's just the balancing in the game was like trash, and no one mentioned it. Hell, people didn't even finish they didn't even finish the game before they reviewed it. They just said it was a great game. Same thing with Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk was also hyped to hell without even fucking, the game didn't even come out, and you were already hyped for it. You know, and you got the Tears of the Kingdom, right? And the game, we're halfway through the year, right? In terms of reviews and awards and game awards or whatever, and they've already coined this game. Didn't even give Final Fantasy a shot, but you already coined Tears of the Kingdom, despite all of the flaws that you've actually hit other games with. You know, you dinged them for. You gave it Game of the Year. You're already saying Game of the Year. So basically, it's so biased. You can't even say anything about it. It's just Game of the Year. Final Fantasy 16 could be the best fucking game ever, the best game ever, and it'll still be second fiddle. It'll still play second fiddle to Tears of the Kingdom. Which, to be honest with you, I don't find it fair. This is not coming from like, what do you call it? This isn't coming from a PlayStation fan, because to be honest with you, I've only owned one Final Fantasy in my life, and I took that bitch back. I played that shit for like 20, 30 minutes. Then wasn't feeling it. It wasn't a bad game. That shit was not resonating with me. I'll say that, and I'll be the first person to tell you I didn't like it, but not because of it being Final Fantasy it being a bad game. I didn't like it. I didn't think it was overhyped or anything. It's just that I didn't like it, so I returned it. So I don't have any stake in the game when it comes to Final Fantasy. This Final Fantasy I will buy because it resonates with me. I like more of a realistic setting than anything. And to be honest with you, I think if you want to give something a Game of the Year, like do something where somebody really put a lot of fucking effort in. Even if it is Tears of the Kingdom, like make sure that you're being honest about it. You know what I'm saying? If you are going to review the game, you know, if it's a clear winner, then let it be a clear winner. You know, don't let it be a clear winner. Like don't be fucking biased, and you're just saying that that's the like, I hate that shit. Every year there's a big game that gets overhyped, and you automatically coin it as game of the year without giving a fucking thought or a blink. And it's funny because when I'm looking at this shit, I guarantee you, if people didn't say anything about Cyberpunk being glitchy on the console, I guarantee you that shit would have been like a contender for game of the year. And you know what, too? You can even look at what is that shit? You can even look at um fucking The Witcher. That's another game that was super overhyped. The Witcher was one of those games where it's so buggy even now after all these years. That shit is extra bugged. And people are like they are laughing it up, and that's fine if you like it or whatever the case is. But it is very funny. It's very funny that it's very funny that that game could sit there, right, and be that buggy, and you just ignore all the bugs, and you say game of the year. You know, you say game of the year contender and shit like that. It's, to me, that's fucked up. Say what you will about it, but that ain't how you supposed to handle it. You know what I mean? You ain't supposed to handle it like that. That ain't it. But you got people that will sit there and say that the game is the best game of all time because of what story? Like, you can't sit there and say that you're a gamer, right? And say that I like this game of the year because the story was engaging. That shit don't make any kind of sense. That right there, that's such a stupid fucking reason to give something a game of the year because you felt you liked the story. Like, huh? Like, let's be honest about it. You know what I'm saying? That's one thing I give Tears of the Kingdom. That shit got its gameplay on fleek. Old ass word now. I don't think about it. But it does though. They have that shit on fleek. They got it. Gameplay is much better than anything that's in fucking The Witcher. And you got people that are hardcore fans of it. Why? Because you have romance options? Like what are we doing here? Like, I still to this day, because the combat sucks, and I think everybody knows it. I think that was a ding that the game got, but that's another thing that they kind of swept under the rug when it came to the game. Is that they were like, yeah, this shit mediocre, but this story is fire. So it's game of the year. Thanks. Bye. You know, and that was the end of it. I'm like, yo, you know, I didn't like that shit. And further, you know, I'll say this because a lot of people will be like, what the fuck? You know, this dude on something. And I guess you could say I am. But I didn't like Vice City. Vice City for the PS2. GTA Vice City. I didn't like that shit. I didn't like it at all. I felt like that game was definitely... So I can't say that's an expansion. It was a new environment. And that's why I think a lot of people didn't really give it that expansion treatment. You know? I feel like they were like, I mean, you know, it's doing this thing. But all in all, the game was that game was sloppy. It wasn't balanced and it was sloppy. You had a new environment and that was cool. You had a banging ass soundtrack, that was cool. The storyline was, I guess, the typical GTA storyline, so ain't too much to expect from that one. But either way, you know what I'm saying? People gave it game of the year, and I think they gave it game of the year for the fucking soundtrack. It's like, what are we reviewing games on nowadays? Like, is this what we're doing? Are we, you know, are we reviewing games based off of like music and acting when it's supposed to be an actual game? Is that what we've been doing lately? That shit, I don't know. Like, as a gamer, that should not sit right with any gamer, that a game could sit there and win game of the year because of its story beats. You know what I'm saying? The game is supposed to be still gameplay and it's supposed to be a sum of its parts. But if your gameplay is not really, it's solid, but it ain't doing anything crazy, then what are we doing here? And that's what I that's what I wanted to bring attention to the situation. I know people are going to be like, well, you know, they're going to say what they're going to say. I mean, but I can't stop them from saying it. I know I ain't with it. I ain't with that shit at all. You know, you still are a game ultimately. You know what I mean? You can't say a movie, right? Is fucking game of the, I mean, it is movie of the year and shit like that because it had a banging ass soundtrack. That's you can't do that. You know what I mean? I feel like that's what people are doing when it comes to games. You're rating these games and it's because of story. I've never been a person to really agree with that shit. That shit don't make any. That shit will never make any kind of sense to me. Like it just doesn't. It doesn't make any kind of sense. It's foolish, you know, to rate a game based off of either story or I guess hype. You know, because that's what we were talking about. Because that's what most people are doing. They get swept up in the fucking hype, and then it's the best game ever made with all these damn flaws on there, and then they go and then it goes unchecked. And then you know, and then when either the sequel comes out for that particular game or what have you, then you coin it again as one of the best games based off of the predecessor, and it's like a vicious cycle. It's just to me, it just sounds stupid. You know, people really should they should investigate a game and see if it's their thing. You know, before they do that. But people are going to be people. They're going to get swept up in the hype. That's what people are going to do. People peopling all over the place. They're going to get swept up in the hype, and that's how they're going to feel about it. They're going to be like, you know what? This game is the fire, is crazy, it's good, whatever. And they're going to get swept up in the hype. That's just what it is. And if you're going to get swept up in the hype, because it's inevitable, we're all human, so we're going to get swept up in the hype. But if you are going to get swept up in the hype, make sure you do some research as to what the game is going to do, like what it's doing. Is it your type of game? You know, does it have like major flaws? Is the reviewer credible? Shit like that. You definitely need to kind of like review those particular things before you start talking about game of the year for no reason. To me, that's how I feel. But that's basically all I had to say about this. I just wanted to get that shit out for real, for real. And I'm glad that it was just me for the moment. I just didn't fucking want to debate. Got enough of that shit. But anyway, listen, you guys take care.